General description and infrastructure of Greater Oceania, which includes Indonesia, Australia, and New Zealand, by Team 3, Sagar Patel, Danielle Tierney, Nicole Jones, and Douglas Appia. Indonesia is the largest archipelagic country in the world, measuring 3,181 miles east to west and 1,094 miles north to south. Indonesia contains 17,500 islands, with around 6,000 of them being inhabited. The 5 largest islands of Indonesia are Java, Sumatra, Kalimantan, also known as Borneo, Sulawesi, and New Guinea. It shares land borders with Malaysia on Borneo Island and land border with Papua New Guinea on the island of New Guinea. Indonesia also shares maritime borders with Singapore, Malaysia, and the Philippines to the north and Australia to the south. Australia is a country in Oceania bordering the Indian Ocean and the southern Pacific Ocean. Australia is comprised of mainland Australia, the island of Tasmania, and several small islands in the Indian and Pacific Oceans. Australia has 6 states including Queensland, Tasmania, New South Wales, Victoria, South Australia, and Western Australia. Indonesia has a population of 266,719,112 people, which is the 4th most populous country in the world. It has an urban population of 147,548,918, which makes up 55.3% of the total population. It has a population density of 147 people per kilometer squared. The median age is 28.3 years old, and Jakarta is the capital, and it houses 10,075,310 people, which is almost equal to the next 4 largest cities combined. Australia has a population of 24,210,809, with an urban population of 89.554% of total population. The median age is 38.7 years old. And broken down, Sydney contains 4.792 million people, Melbourne contains 4.771 million people, Brisbane has 2.338 million, Perth with 1.991 million, Adelaide with 1.32 million, and Canberra, the capital, with 423,000 people. New Zealand has a population of 4,510,327 people. It's located in the Greater Oceania Islands in the South Pacific Ocean and southeast of Australia. Indonesia recorded total exports of $168.7 billion in 2017, with its top exports being palm oil, coal briquettes, and petroleum gas. Total imports were $156.8 billion in 2017, with the top imports being industrial machines, refined petroleum, crude petroleum, and telephones. The telephones are part of the industrial machine category. Australia had total exports of $189,629,974,559, with the top exports being ores, oil and mineral fuels, precious stones, and metals. Total imports valued at $189,406,027,941, with the top imports being industrial machinery, motor vehicles and parts, electrical machinery, and oil and mineral fuels. New Zealand's top 2 exports were dairy products, totaling $8,037,082,718, and meat, which is $4,131,511,116. New Zealand's top 2 imports were motor vehicles and parts, totaled at $5,385,916,930, and industrial machinery, which was $4,801,569,292. Indonesia's top trading partners were, in regards to exports, Japan with 12% of total exports, United States with 10.8% of total exports, and China with 10% of total exports. In regards to imports, China was number 1 with 20.6% of total imports, Singapore coming second with 12.6% of total imports, and then Japan with 9.3% of total imports. Australia's top trading partners with regards to exports are China at number 1 with 31.6% of total exports, then Japan with 13.89% of total exports, and then finishing up South Korea with 6.73% of total exports. In regard to main import partners, China leads the way again with 23.36% of total imports, then United States with 11.46% of total imports, and then Japan with 7.7% of total imports. New Zealand's top three export partners are number 1, China, at almost $6.6 billion, number 2, Australia, at $5.7 billion, and then number 3, the United States, at $3.7 billion. New Zealand's top three import partners are the exact same as their export partners, in the same order as well. China, number 1, with $7.2 billion in imports. Australia, number 2, with $4.55 billion in imports. And United States, with $4.1 billion in imports. Looking at the trade between Indonesia and the United States, we see that Indonesian exports to the U.S. totaled $17.8 billion, or 10.6% of their total exports. The top exports to U.S. were clothing, including knit and crochet, which totaled $4.1 billion, rubber, which totaled $1.8 billion, and fish, which totaled $1.4 billion. Indonesian imports from the U.S. totaled $8.1 billion, or 5.2% of their total imports. The top imports from the U.S. to Indonesia are oilseed, which is $1.1 billion, machinery, which is $949.3 million, and food waste and animal fodder, which is $558.8 million. Looking at the trade between Australia and the United States, we see that Australian exports to the U.S. totaled $8.8 billion, or 4.6% of their total exports. The top exports to the U.S. were meat, which totaled $1.5 billion, optics and medical instruments, which totaled $695 million, and ores, slag, and ash, which totaled $613 million. Australian imports from the U.S. totaled $22 billion, or 11.46% of their total imports. The top imports from the U.S. to Australia were machinery, totaling $2.2 billion, vehicles, $2.5 billion, and electrical machinery, $2.3 billion worth. Looking at the infrastructure of Indonesia, we see that it has 673 total airports, 186 with paved runways, and it services 96.53 million people per year. Looking at railways, it has 8,159 kilometers of total railways, which totals to 5,070 miles. 4,816 kilometers is operational, and it serves 268.4 million people a year. Roadways, it has 283,102 kilometers of paved roads. Indonesia contains the Transjakarta, which is the longest bus rapid transit system in the world, which carries 430,000 people daily. Waterways are very important in Indonesia. It has a total of 21,579 kilometers of waterways. Its three main ports are the Port of Tanjung Priok, Port of Belawan, and Port of Tanjung Perak. Since Indonesia is an archipelago with so many islands, water transport is a very important part of trading and shipping goods. Indonesia ranks number 1 in the world in merchant marines, which refers to the number of private and publicly owned commercial ships, with 8,782. We take a look at infrastructure quality in Indonesia. According to the World Economic Forum, which has infrastructure rankings for 140 countries on a scale from 1 to 7, Indonesia has quality rankings of air transport at 4.36, which is right at the world average, railways ranking at 3.6, which is above the world average, roadways ranking at 3.72, which is below the world average, and then port quality, which ranks at 3.81, which is below the world average. We now take a look at Australia's infrastructure. Australia has 480 total airports, with 349 having paved runways and servicing 69.29 million people per year. It has a total of 20,718 miles of railways, 542,813 miles of roadways, and 1,243 miles of waterways, which are mainly used for recreation on the Murray and Murray-Darling river systems. The major seaports of Australia are Brisbane, Cairns, Darwin, Fremantle, Geelong, Gladstone, Hobart, Melbourne, Newcastle, Port Adelaide, Port Kembla, and Sydney. It has dry bulk cargo ports in Dampier for iron ore, Dalrymple Bay for coal, Hay Point for coal, Port Hedland for coal or iron ore, and Port Walcott for iron ore. New Zealand's infrastructure. It has 123 airports, 39 of them having paved runways. For rail, it has 4,000 kilometers of track, and it has 94,000 kilometers of roads, 6,600 of them which are paved. We now take a look at the communications in Indonesia. It has 10,752 landlines, which puts it at 19th in the world. As for cell phone subscriptions, it has 385,573,398 subscriptions, which puts it at 5th in the world, giving it 148 per 100 people. As for internet, Indonesia had 143.26 million users in 2017, with an internet penetration rate of 55%. 72.4% of people in urban areas have access to the internet, and in rural urban areas, 49.49% have access, and in rural areas, 48.25% have access. E-commerce in Indonesia was up to $10.9 billion in 2017, up from $5.5 billion in 2015. 50% of the population is under 30 years old, and forecasts predict the number of e-commerce users will reach 39.3 million by 2020, with an average 12% yearly growth rate. We now take a look at communications in Australia. It has 8.18 million landlines, which puts it at 22nd in the world. It has 26,551,000 cell phone subscriptions, which puts it at 48th in the world. And it had 20,288,409 internet users. E-commerce in Australia is forecasting to exceed $32 billion in 2017, putting them top 10 worldwide. New Zealand's internet infrastructure. New Zealand had 3,958,642 total internet users, which was 88.5% of their population. The population of internet shoppers totaled 1.9 million, and e-commerce sales totaled up to $4.2 million. E-commerce penetration was 56%. Some of the top marketing agencies in Indonesia are Milestone, Saatchi & Saatchi, Great Indonesia, and Matahari Advertising. Some of the top marketing agencies in Australia are Bulldog Digital Media, Editor Group, Assemblo, OnQ Marketing, and SEO Cycle.